If you drop a glass on the floor, it takes half a second to shatter. But if you spent that same half second near a black hole, empires on Earth would rise and fall before you blinked. We assume our lives are a long, orderly list. Birth, school, first job, kids, death. The whole ride takes about 29,200 days. It sounds logical, but it is not true. You are being born right now. You are dying right now. You are starting your first job and getting fired right now. You are kissing your first love and saying your final goodbye right now. Everything that has ever happened to you, and everything that ever will happen, is locked in this exact same instant. At least, that is what the laws of physics tell us. According to Einstein, the past didn't disappear and the future isn't waiting to be built. They are simply different coordinates on a map that already exists. Tonight, we are going to expose the machinery behind this illusion. We will discover why your own biology forces you to live in the past, why gravity locks you in a solitary confinement cell that you can never leave, and why the choices you make today were actually decided before the Earth was even built. You think you are the player of the game, but you might just be the recording. Let's take a moment to look at the hardware sitting inside your skull right now. I want you to look at your own hand in front of your face, wiggle your fingers, snap them, do it. When you watch that movement, you are operating under the incredibly comfortable assumption that you are seeing it happen in real time, right? You feel like your eyes are just transparent windows, and the universe is flooding through them instantly. Why wouldn't you? It feels seamless. It feels perfect. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself if that feeling is actually true? Or is it just a clever interface designed to keep you happy? Biology gives us a very different, and frankly, a very unsettling answer. The truth is that now is a lie. To understand why, you have to realize that information is physical stuff, and physical stuff hates to travel fast. When the light from your lamp bounces off your hand and hits your eye, it doesn't just magically teleport into your consciousness. It has to kickstart a messy, complicated chain reaction where photons crash into your retina, trigger a chemical explosion in your photoreceptors, and convert themselves into electricity. And then, that electrical signal has to crawl down the wet wiring of your optic nerve, filter through the thalamus, and finally get stitched together into a coherent picture by the visual cortex at the back of your head. That whole process, the chemistry, the travel, the rendering, takes time. Specifically, it takes about 80 milliseconds. Now, you might be thinking, so what? 80 milliseconds is nothing. And sure, to a human being waiting in line for coffee, it feels like zero. But in the laws of physics, 80 milliseconds is a massive, gaping canyon of missing time. To a computer, that is an eternity. It's enough time to run millions of calculations. To a bullet, it's enough time to travel 100 feet. And to your brain, it is the insurmountable wall that separates you from reality. Think about what this actually means for your life. It means that by the time you actually see your fingers move, the movement is already over. It's history. It's old news. The screen you are looking at right now, you aren't seeing it as it is. You are seeing it as it was 1/10 of a second ago. You are not living in the present. You never have been. You are permanently trapped in the immediate past, watching a delayed broadcast of a world that has already moved on without you. So where is the real you in this timeline? If the physical world is happening out there and your conscious experience is happening 80 milliseconds later in here, are you ever actually interacting with reality? Or are you just chasing a ghost? Imagine you are driving a car on a highway at night, but instead of looking through the windshield, you are forced to drive by watching a video feed on a tablet that has a slight lag. You turn the wheel because you see a curve, but the car has already entered the curve before you even moved your hands. That sounds terrifying, doesn't it? You would crash instantly. But here is the scary part. You are driving that car right now. Your body is the vehicle, and your consciousness is the driver with the laggy headset. The only reason you don't crash into walls every time you walk is that your brain is lying to you. It is frantically editing the videotape, cutting out the delay, and syncing the audio so you don't realize you're out of step with the universe. But the delay is still there. You're always late to your own existence. If we are truly trapped in the past, disconnected from the real world by a massive biological lag, then why doesn't it feel like it? Why don't you crash into walls? Why doesn't the world look like a badly dubbed movie, where the audio doesn't match the video and everything is jittery? The answer is even more disturbing than the delay itself. It turns out that your brain knows it is slow, and because it knows it can't show you the truth, it decides to lie to you instead. It constructs a simulation. It creates a seamless illusion of the present by aggressively predicting the future. To prove that your world is a hallucination, let's look at a phenomenon that breaks the brain's rendering engine, the flash lag effect. I want you to imagine a simple experiment. Imagine a bright yellow dot moving continuously across a black screen from left to right. Suddenly, right as the dot passes the center of the screen, a red light flashes briefly directly underneath it. Now, if your eyes were honest cameras giving you a raw feed of reality, you would see the two lights perfectly aligned vertically for that split second. But that is not what you see. If you take this test, you will swear on your life that the moving yellow dot was significantly ahead of the red flash. Why does your brain make that mistake? Why does it push the moving object forward? Because it is trying to help you survive in a world where you are always behind. If your brain showed you where the moving object actually was when the light hit your eye, you would be useless as a biological organism. You couldn't catch a baseball because you'd be swinging your bat at empty air where the ball used to be 80 milliseconds ago. You couldn't drive a car because you'd be braking for a pedestrian who had already finished crossing the street. The lag would kill you. So, your brain cheats. It runs a physics simulation in the background. It calculates the trajectory of the moving object, extrapolates where it should be in 80 milliseconds, and then draws that predicted image into your conscious mind. Think about the terrifying implication of this. It means you are not seeing the object itself. You are seeing a neural prediction, a computed guess designed to cover up the system's incompetence. You think you are interacting with the world, but you are actually interacting with a model of the world constructed moments before the real data even arrived. You are walking through a hologram of your own making, hoping that the real world matches your prediction. But what happens when it doesn't? What happens when the world zigs and your brain predicted a zag? That is when accidents happen. That is when illusions break. But for 99% of your life, you are happily living inside a guess. Okay, so you can accept that your vision is delayed. You can accept that you are seeing a prediction. But surely, inside the private sanctuary of your own mind, you are still the boss, right? You cherish the belief that you are the conscious author of your actions. You feel a desire to lift your finger. You make a conscious choice to do it, and then your body obeys. The chain of command seems crystal clear. Consciousness leads, and the biological machine follows. But what if I told you that this chain of command is completely backwards? What if the orders are coming from the bottom up, and you are just the last person to know? In 1983, a researcher named Benjamin Libet conducted a famous experiment that effectively put a gun to the head of the concept of free will. The setup was simple, but the results were devastating. He hooked subjects up to an EEG machine to monitor the electrical storms in their brains. He gave them a very simple task: move your finger whenever you feel like it. No pressure, no signal, just pure spontaneous free will. He also asked them to watch a precise spinning clock and note the exact millisecond they consciously decided to move. The results were not just surprising, they were horrifying. The EEG showed a massive spike in brain activity, known as the readiness potential, building up in the motor cortex. But here is the catch. This spike appeared a full 350 to 500 milliseconds before the subject reported being aware of their decision. Stop and think about that half-second gap. It is an eternity. It means that your physical brain had already crunched the data, initiated the action, prepared the muscles, and launched the command long before you, the conscious voice in your head, knew anything about it. By the time you thought, I want to move my finger, the finger was already moving. The decision wasn't yours. It was a chemical accident that happened in the dark, and your consciousness was just informed about it later. So, who is actually in charge here? If the action starts before the thought, then your feeling of deciding is not the cause of the action. It is just a notification. It's a pop-up window on your computer screen saying, download complete. You aren't the king issuing orders to your troops. You are just the guy reading the report of a battle that has already been fought and won without you. Does that make you feel free? Or does it make you feel like a passenger? This brings us to the uncomfortable conclusion of our biological journey, and it forces us to redefine what a human being actually is. We like to think of our consciousness as the CEO of the company, the person sitting in the big corner office, looking at the data, strategizing, and making the hard choices that drive the body forward. We believe we are the architects of our own lives, but the biology of time suggests that you are actually the press secretary. Think about what a press secretary does. They don't make the policy. They don't launch the missiles. They walk into the briefing room after the decisions have been made by the president and the generals, and their job is to explain those decisions to the public. They weave a narrative. They make it sound logical. They make it sound like it was all part of a master plan. That is exactly what your conscious mind is doing right now. Your subconscious brain does all the heavy lifting. It reacts to the environment. It avoids the car crash. It picks the sandwich. It moves the finger. And then, almost a full second later, it hands a script to your consciousness and says, "Here, tell the world we meant to do this." And you do. You tell yourself a story about how you are in control, about how you chose this path, about how you are the master of your fate. But it is just a story. It is a rationalization designed to stitch together a series of biochemical reactions into a narrative that feels consistent so you don't go insane. This is the first level of the trap. We are trapped in a body that creates a fake now to navigate a world we cannot see in real time. We are trapped in a mind that creates a fake free will to explain actions we didn't initiate. If we can't even trust the time inside our own heads, how can we possibly trust the time in the universe? You might hope that even if your brain is messy, the universe outside is clean. You might hope that there is a master clock ticking somewhere in the cosmos that keeps everything in order, a universal now that we all share. But if you look at the sky, you won't find a clock. You will find something much, much worse. Let's talk about gravity and how it tears reality apart. We have established that the time inside your head is a lie. But surely, we can find comfort in the time outside our heads. We desperately want to believe that the universe runs on a master schedule. We imagine that there is a giant, invisible cosmic clock ticking in the background, and that every second that passes here on Earth corresponds exactly to a second passing on Mars, or in the Andromeda galaxy, or at the edge of the observable universe. We cling to the idea of a universal now, a single moment of existence shared by everything and everyone. For centuries, this was the dominant view of science. Isaac Newton, the father of physics, believed in absolute time. He thought time was a container, a steady, unchangeable stage where events happened. He believed that if you removed all the stars and planets, time would still flow smoothly, like a steady heartbeat of God. But in 1905, a patent clerk named Albert Einstein published a paper that murdered Newton's clock. Einstein discovered something that violates every ounce of common sense you possess. Time is not a container. Time is a landscape. And like any landscape, it can be warped, stretched, and twisted. He proved that time does not tick at the same rate for everyone. It is personal. It is malleable. The rate at which you experience time depends entirely on two things: how fast you are moving and how close you are to a heavy object. If you move faster, your time slows down relative to someone standing still. If you stand near a black hole, your minutes become someone else's centuries. This isn't just a trick of perception. It is a physical warping of reality. This means there is no master clock. There is no now that covers the whole universe. There is only your now, and it applies only to you. You are carrying your own private bubble of time, and it never perfectly synchronizes with anyone else's. We have established that the time inside your head is a lie, but surely we can find comfort in the time outside our heads. We desperately want to believe that the universe runs on a master schedule. We imagine that there is a giant, invisible cosmic clock ticking in the background, and that every second that passes here on Earth corresponds exactly to a second passing on Mars, or in the Andromeda galaxy, or at the edge of the observable universe. We cling to the idea of a universal now, a single moment of existence shared by everything and everyone. For centuries, this was the dominant view of science. Isaac Newton, the father of physics, believed in absolute time. He thought time was a container, a steady, unchangeable stage where events happened. He believed that if you removed all the stars and planets, time would still flow smoothly, like a steady heartbeat of God. But in 1905, a patent clerk named Albert Einstein published a paper that murdered Newton's clock. Einstein discovered something that violates every ounce of common sense you possess. Time is not a container. Time is a landscape. And like any landscape, it can be warped, stretched, and twisted. He proved that time does not tick at the same rate for everyone. It is personal. It is malleable. The rate at which you experience time depends entirely on two things: how fast you are moving and how close you are to a heavy object. If you move faster, your time slows down relative to someone standing still. If you stand near a black hole, your minutes become someone else's centuries. This isn't just a trick of perception. It is a physical warping of reality. This means there is no master clock. There is no now that covers the whole universe. There is only your now, and it applies only to you. You are carrying your own private bubble of time, and it never perfectly synchronizes with anyone else's. To understand why the universal now is impossible, we have to look at the speed limit of the universe. You probably know the number. The speed of light is roughly 300,000 kilometers per second. We usually think of this as just very fast. But in physics, c, the speed of light, is not just a speed. It is the speed of causality. It is the maximum speed at which any information can travel through the cosmos. It is the refresh rate of reality. Let's perform a thought experiment to see how this limit destroys the concept of at the same time. Imagine you are standing in a vast, dark field during a thunderstorm. Suddenly, two lightning bolts strike the ground, one a mile to your left and one a mile to your right. To you, standing exactly in the middle, they appear to strike at the exact same instant. You say, these events were simultaneous. But now, imagine your friend is on a supersonic train moving incredibly fast towards the left bolt. Because he is rushing towards the light, the photons from the left bolt hit his eyes before the photons from the right bolt catch up to him. To him, the left strike happened first. He isn't wrong. He isn't hallucinating. In his frame of reference, the left strike literally happened in his past, while the right strike was still in his future. Who is right? Did the strikes happen at the same time, or not? The terrifying answer from relativity is both and neither. There is no correct answer. Simultaneity is relative. If we can't even agree on the order of events for two lightning bolts on Earth, imagine the chaos when we look at the stars. An explosion in a distant galaxy might be happening now for us, but for an alien moving towards us, it happened 1,000,000 years ago. The universe is not a coherent story. It is a jumbled mess of conflicting timelines where before and after depend entirely on your seat on the train. If time is relative, if your now is different from my now, then how do we picture the universe? We have to stop thinking of it as a flowing river and start thinking of it as a giant loaf of bread. This is the classic metaphor used by physicists to explain the block universe. Imagine the entire history of the universe. From the Big Bang to the end of time, is a long loaf of sourdough bread. Each slice of the bread represents a moment of now. If you and I are sitting still on a park bench, we are cutting the bread at the same angle. Our slices are parallel. My now is the same as your now. But the moment I stand up and start walking away from you, the angle of my knife changes. Because I am moving through space, I am cutting through time at a slightly different slant. This sounds like a tiny detail, right? I'm just walking. How much can my time really change? On human scales, the difference is nanoseconds. Too small to notice. But geometry is brutal when you extend the lines. If you tilt your knife by just a fraction of a degree on a loaf of bread that is billions of light years long, that tiny tilt creates a massive divergence at the other end. By simply walking across the room, my slice of now in the distant universe shifts by hundreds of years compared to yours. My now might slice through a galaxy as it is today. Your now, angled slightly differently because you are sitting still, might slice through that same galaxy as it was last Tuesday, or as it will be in the year 3000. We are physically inhabiting different cross-sections of reality, and this leads to a paradox that should make you question the solidity of your own future. Let's take that slicing metaphor and apply it to a specific, terrifying example proposed by the mathematician Roger Penrose. It is called the Andromeda paradox. Imagine two people, Alice and Bob, walking down the street on Earth. They pass each other. Alice is walking towards the Andromeda galaxy, which is 2.5 million light years away. Bob is walking away from it. They are moving slowly, just a normal walking pace. But because Andromeda is so far away, that tiny difference in their speed and direction tilts their slices of now drastically at the other end of the universe. For Bob, who is walking away, his slice of now intersects with Andromeda at a moment where a council of aliens is still debating whether or not to launch an invasion fleet towards Earth. The decision hasn't been made yet. The future is open. But for Alice, who is walking towards Andromeda, her slice of now is angled into the future. Her slice intersects Andromeda days, or even weeks later. In her reality, the council has already finished the meeting, the decision has been made, and the invasion fleet has already launched. Think about what this means. These two people are passing each other on the sidewalk, close enough to shake hands, but in Alice's reality, a galactic war has physically begun. In Bob's reality, it is still undecided. How can both be true? If the fleet has launched in Alice's now, then the event is fixed. It is real. And if it is fixed for Alice, it must be inevitable for Bob. Bob is simply living through a script that Alice's reality has already played out. This paradox implies that the future isn't a cloud of possibilities. It is a rigid landscape that is already there. Just by changing your speed, you can intersect with events that haven't happened yet for someone else. And if you can intersect with them, then they must already exist. At this point, you might be rolling your eyes. You might be thinking, okay, this is fun science fiction. People walking down the street changing the fate of alien wars. Give me a break. This is just philosophical math on a chalkboard. It has nothing to do with real life. I get it. It sounds absurd. But I have news for you. You are holding the proof in your hand right now. It's your smartphone. Every time you open Google Maps or use your GPS to find a coffee shop, you are relying on a system that would crash and burn if Einstein was wrong. The GPS system works by receiving signals from satellites orbiting the Earth. These satellites are moving fast, about 14,000 kilometers per hour. According to special relativity, their speed makes their clocks tick slower by about 7 microseconds a day compared to clocks on the ground. But there is a double whammy. The satellites are also far away from Earth's gravity. According to general relativity, gravity slows down time. Since the satellites are in weaker gravity, their clocks tick faster by about 45 microseconds a day. Combine the two effects, and the satellite clocks run faster than your phone's clock by exactly 38 microseconds every single day. Now, 38 microseconds sounds like nothing. But light travels fast. If the engineers didn't program the satellites to mathematically compensate for this time warp, the GPS accuracy would drift by about 10 kilometers every single day. Within weeks, your map would be useless. The fact that your blue dot is on the correct street is empirical, hard proof that time is relative. The satellites are literally living in a different future than you are, and your phone has to do complex math just to bridge the gap between their timeline and yours. So, the walls of the prison are real. Time is not consistent. It creates a chaotic, lonely universe where no two observers share the same reality. But if time is warped by speed and gravity, what does that do to your body? What does it feel like to be physically stretched across time? Let's bring this cosmic horror back down to the most intimate scale possible. Your own physical body. Right now, as you sit in your chair, you have a very strong, intuitive sense that you are a single, cohesive unit. You feel like your head, your heart, and your feet are all existing in the exact same moment of time. You assume that your body ages as a synchronized whole, but general relativity has a very strange surprise for you. That feeling of wholeness is a lie. We know from Einstein that gravity slows down time. The closer you are to a massive object like the Earth, the deeper you are in the gravity well, and the slower your clock ticks. This isn't just theory, it is a measurable physical fact. And here is the disturbing implication. Your feet are closer to the center of the Earth than your head is. Because your feet are grounded on the floor, they are sitting in a slightly stronger gravitational field than your brain, which is 5 or 6 feet higher up. This means that time is physically flowing slower for your feet than it is for your head. Your own body is being torn apart by time dilation. Your head is living in the future compared to your toes. Your heart is beating at a different tempo than your kidneys. You are not a solid object. You are a smeared event stretched across a gradient of time. Now you might think, come on, the difference must be 0. And it is true that on the scale of a human height, the difference is measured in nanoseconds. But in the year 2010, researchers at the National Institute of Standards and Technology actually measured this effect using super precise atomic clocks. They raised one clock just 33 centimeters above the other, about 1 foot, and sure enough, the higher clock ticked faster. It proved that you are technically aging faster in your face than in your ankles. It proved that there is no single time, even inside your own skin. You are a colony of biological parts, each trapped in its own separate time zone, drifting apart from each other with every second that passes. If gravity can tear the time in your own body apart, imagine what it does to the connection between you and the rest of the universe. If we accept that time is relative and disjointed, we have to face the ultimate consequence of this physics: loneliness. We usually think of loneliness as an emotional state, a feeling of being isolated from other people. But relativity suggests that loneliness is a fundamental structural law of the universe, defined by something physicists call the light cone. Here is how it works. Because the speed of light is finite, there is a limit to what you can see and what you can affect. Imagine a cone expanding outwards from your body into the future. Everything inside that cone is stuff you can theoretically reach or talk to. If you send a signal today, it can reach Mars in 20 minutes. So Mars is in your future light cone. But there is a second cone stretching back into the past. This contains everything that could have possibly affected you. The sunlight hitting you now left the sun 8 minutes ago. So the sun is in your past light cone. But here is the horror. There is a massive region of the universe that is outside both cones. Physicists call this region elsewhere. Elsewhere is the vast majority of the universe. It contains events that are happening now, but are too far away for their light to have reached us yet, and too far away for us to signal them. We are causally disconnected from them. We can never know what is happening in the elsewhere. A civilization could be detonating a supernova in the Andromeda galaxy right this second, and it wouldn't exist for us. It is physically impossible to know. This means that each of us is locked inside a bubble of causality. We can never truly touch the now of another person. When you look at your friend across the table, you are seeing them as they were a few nanoseconds ago. You are seeing their ghost. You are forever chasing their past, and they are forever chasing yours. We are all trapped in solitary confinement, tapping on the glass walls of our light cones, waiting for signals that are always, inevitably, late. We have stripped away almost everything you thought was real. We took away the flow of time and replaced it with a frozen block of ice. We took away the universal now and replaced it with a chaotic mess of relative timelines. We took away your sense of wholeness and showed you that your head is older than your feet. But there is one thing left, isn't there? One final anchor that keeps you sane: cause and effect. No matter how weird relativity gets, you still believe in the basic sequence of events. You believe that the cause must always come before the effect. If you drop a coffee cup, it hits the floor and shatters. The dropping is the cause, the shattering is the effect. It never happens the other way around. You never see shards of ceramic leap off the floor and assemble themselves into a pristine mug in your hand. This rule, that the past determines the future, feels like the bedrock of reality. It feels like the one law that cannot be broken. If this law breaks, then the whole story of the universe falls apart. If the effect can happen before the cause, then logic itself is a lie. So physics must protect this rule at all costs, right? Well, hold on to your seat, because we are about to leave the world of Einstein and enter the world of quantum mechanics. And down there, in the subatomic basement of reality, the arrow of time doesn't just get bent, it gets snapped in half. To understand why cause and effect are not as solid as you think, we have to look at the equations again. We have a deep intuition that time only has one direction: forward. We see people get older, not younger. We see ice melt, not freeze spontaneously. We see chaos increase. But here is the dirty secret of physics. The fundamental laws of the universe do not care about time. If you look at Newton's laws of motion, or Maxwell's equations for electromagnetism, or even Schrödinger's equation for quantum mechanics, they all share a property called time symmetry. This means that if you take the variable t, for time, and replace it with minus t, negative time, the equation still works perfectly. What does that mean in plain English? It means that if you filmed a video of two billiard balls colliding on a pool table, and then played that video backward, it would look completely natural. The physics works in both directions. If you filmed the planets orbiting the sun and played it in reverse, it would still obey the laws of gravity perfectly. At the fundamental level, the universe has no preference for the future over the past. So, if the machinery of reality works just as well in reverse, why do we remember the past but not the future? Why does the coffee cup break but never unbreak? This implies that the arrow of time is not a law. It is just a statistical accident. And if it is just an accident, that means it can be reversed. There are experiments in quantum mechanics that suggest something impossible. That under the right conditions, what you do tomorrow can reach back in time and change what happened yesterday. We are now standing at the edge of the rabbit hole. To break your faith in the timeline, I need to introduce you to the most mind-bending experiment ever performed in the history of physics. It is called the Delayed Choice Quantum Eraser. Just the name should give you chills. Delayed choice. It starts with the famous double-slit experiment, which you might remember from high school. If you fire particles like photons at a wall with two slits, they act very strangely. If you don't watch them, they act like waves and go through both slits at once, creating an interference pattern. But if you put a detector, a camera, at the slits to see which one they go through, they stop acting like waves and start acting like solid particles. The act of observation changes reality. That is weird enough. But in the late 1970s, the physicist John Archibald Wheeler asked a question that sounds like it came from a madman. He asked, what happens if we wait? What if we let the photon pass through the slits first, while it is still a wave? And then, after it has already passed through the slits, but before it hits the back wall, we decide whether or not to turn on the camera. Think about the logic here. The photon has already passed the slits. It has already made its choice to be a wave or a particle. That event is in the past. It is history. But Wheeler suggested that if we make a choice in the present to measure it, we might be able to force the photon to go back in time and change its decision. It sounds like magic. It sounds like time travel. But when they actually built the machine and ran the test, the universe did something that should be impossible. So, what actually happened when they ran the experiment? The physicists set up the equipment so that the photon would fly through the slits, travel through a maze of mirrors, and hit the detector wall. But here is the trick. They placed special erasure detectors far behind the slits. These detectors allowed the scientists to choose whether to keep the information about which path the photon took, or to erase that information, destroying the evidence. Crucially, this choice was made after the photon had already passed through the slits. Common sense tells you that the choice made in the future cannot affect the event in the past. The photon has already moved. It has already behaved as either a wave or a particle. The ink is dry. But the universe does not care about your common sense. When the scientists chose to measure the path, the photon acted like a particle. It hit the wall in a single spot. But when the scientists chose to erase the information, even though the photon had already finished its journey through the slits, the photon acted like a wave. It created an interference pattern. Do you understand the horror of what I'm saying? The photon somehow knew what the scientists were going to do in the future. It adjusted its behavior in the past to match a decision that hadn't been made yet. It is as if you mailed a letter yesterday, and then today, you decided to burn the paper. And the letter you mailed yesterday spontaneously turned into ash inside the envelope, before it was even delivered. The future event reached back in time and rewrote the history of the particle. The timeline is not a one-way street. It is a two-way connection where tomorrow can pull the strings of yesterday. This phenomenon is what physicists call retrocausality. It is the idea that an effect can precede its cause. It sounds like something from a bad time travel movie, but in the quantum world, it is a legitimate interpretation of the math. In our macroscopic life, we are used to the arrow of time pointing in only one direction. You pull the trigger, and then the gun fires. You drop the glass, and then it breaks. The cause always anchors the effect. But the quantum eraser suggests that at the fundamental level of reality, the arrow is broken. The information flows backwards, just as easily as it flows forwards. Think about footprints in the sand. You assume that if you see footprints, it means someone walked there in the past. But retrocausality implies that in the quantum realm, the footprints could appear before the person walks. The walk is the cause, but the evidence of the walk shows up early. This shatters our entire understanding of history. We think of the past as a solid foundation, a concrete basement upon which we build the present. But if the future can change the past, then the foundation is made of quicksand. If the universe allows this, why doesn't it happen to us? Why don't you remember tomorrow? Or do you? Is it possible that what we call intuition or gut feeling is actually a shadow of retrocausality? Is it possible that your brain is picking up on signals from a future that is trying to guide you? Before you dismiss that as fantasy, we need to ask a very uncomfortable question. Is your brain a quantum computer? For a long time, biologists laughed at the idea of quantum effects in the brain. They said the brain is too warm and wet. They argued that quantum states are delicate and collapse instantly in a messy biological environment like the human skull. They said you were a chemical machine, not a quantum one. But recently, the laughter has stopped. Sir Roger Penrose, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, and Stuart Hameroff, an anesthesiologist, proposed a theory called orchestrated objective reduction, or ORC-OR. They suggested that consciousness doesn't happen in the chemical synapses between neurons, but deep inside the neurons, in tiny structural tubes called microtubules. They argue that these microtubules are the perfect size to shelter quantum vibrations. If this theory is true, it changes everything. It means your brain is not just a computer, it is a quantum antenna. If your consciousness is a quantum phenomenon, then it is subject to the same laws as that photon in the Libet experiment. It is subject to retrocausality. This suggests the terrifying possibility that your thoughts are not just a product of your past memories. They might be influenced by your future states. You might be making decisions today because a future version of you needs you to make them. The loop of cause and effect inside your head creates a paradox where you are effectively trapping yourself in a timeline defined by events that haven't happened yet. You aren't just pushing into the future is pulling you towards it. So, where does this leave us? We started by destroying the now with biology. Then we destroyed the universal clock with relativity. And now we have destroyed the past with quantum mechanics. We tend to look at history as a recording. We think that what happened in the year 1999 is fixed, frozen, and unchangeable. But quantum mechanics, specifically the interpretation championed by physicists like John Wheeler, suggests that history is actually a probability cloud. Wheeler argued that the past has no definite existence until it is observed in the present. Just like the photon doesn't decide to be a wave or a particle until we look at it, the history of the universe doesn't decide what it was until we ask a question about it today. By looking at the stars, by digging up fossils, by measuring the cosmic background radiation, we are not just discovering the past, we are creating it. We are forcing the universe to collapse from a haze of possibilities into a specific history that leads to us. This creates a sense of profound vertigo. It feels like walking on a bridge that builds itself just one step ahead of your feet, while the bridge behind you dissolves back into the mist. If the past creates the present, but the present creates the past, then there is no solid ground anywhere. We are floating in a void of mutual creation, a self-referential loop with no beginning and no end. But if everything is fluid, if everything is relative, surely there must be something solid holding it all together. This brings us to the fourth level of the spiral, and the most claustrophobic concept in all of physics. If we want to reconcile the relativity of Einstein with the weirdness of quantum mechanics, we are forced to adopt a model of reality that denies the existence of change altogether. It is called eternalism, or the block universe theory. Earlier, we talked about the universe as a loaf of bread to explain time slicing. But now, I want you to look at the loaf itself. If the past still exists for one observer, and the future already exists for another, then logically, all moments of time must exist simultaneously. Imagine the universe not as a movie playing on a screen, but as the DVD disc itself. When you hold a DVD in your hand, the beginning of the movie and the end of the movie are both there, physically etched into the plastic at the same time. The characters in the movie don't know they are on a disc. They feel like they are falling in love, fighting villains, and making choices. But the end credits are already written on the outer edge of the disc before the hero even wakes up in the first scene. The block universe theory states that our reality is exactly like that disc. It is a four-dimensional crystal of space-time. Every event that has ever happened, and every event that will ever happen, is permanently frozen in this block. The birth of the sun, the extinction of the dinosaurs, your first kiss, your death, and the end of the universe. They are all just coordinates in the crystal. They are all equally real, and they are all eternal. Nothing is moving. Nothing is changing. The only thing that moves is your consciousness, crawling along the timeline like a needle on a record player. If we accept the logic of the block universe, we have to fundamentally completely rewire the way we visualize reality. We are used to thinking of the universe as a happening, a process, a fire that burns from moment to moment. We think the past burns up into ash and the future is the fuel waiting to be consumed. But Einstein's physics demands that we stop looking at the universe as a fire and start looking at it as a glacier. Imagine you could step outside of the universe. Imagine you could float in a fifth dimension and look down at our reality the way you look at a model city on a table, what would you see? You wouldn't see a moving world. You wouldn't see stars exploding or people walking. You would see a massive, static, four-dimensional object. Physicists often call this the space-time loaf or the hypercube. In this structure, time is just another physical dimension, exactly like length, width, or height. Think about what this means for the events that you consider gone. The Big Bang is not an event that happened 13.8 billion years ago and then stopped. It is simply the jagged edge of the block at one end. It is still there, exploding right now, just at a different coordinate. The heat death of the universe, where all stars go dark, is not a tragedy waiting in the future. It is the smooth, cold edge of the block at the other end. It is already silent. It is already dead. Both the birth and the death of the cosmos exist simultaneously in this structure. Just as New York City and London exist at the same time on Earth, separated only by space, the dinosaur extinction and your own birth exist at the same time in the block, separated only by time. If you had a spaceship that could travel along the time axis, you could fly to the Jurassic period just as easily as you fly to London. The dinosaurs are not history. They are just neighbors you can't visit because you are locked in your own room. Does that make you feel significant? Or does it make you feel like a fly trapped in a paperweight? To truly grasp how trapped we are, we need to move away from abstract geometry and look at a metaphor that captures the emotional horror of this situation. I want you to imagine a classic reel of movie film. Picture the physical strip of celluloid wound up tight on a metal spool. Hold that strip in your hands. You can unwind it. You can look at the individual frames. In frame number 1000, the hero is smiling, totally unaware that in frame number 5000, the villain is going to shoot him. When you hold the reel, the entire movie exists at once. The beginning, the middle, and the violent end are all physically present in your hand at the exact same moment. The film strip doesn't change, it doesn't grow, it doesn't make choices. The ink is dry, the chemicals are set. Now, imagine that you are the character inside frame number 2000. From your perspective inside the frame, you feel like you have free will. You are deciding whether to open the door or run away. You feel the adrenaline. You feel the uncertainty. You are terrified because you don't know what is behind the door. But outside the frame, in the real universe, the next frame is already printed. You will open the door. You will see the killer. It is not a possibility. It is a physical fact, etched into the structure of reality. The horror of the block universe is that we are confusing the playing of the movie with the existence of the movie. We think that because we are experiencing the frames one by one, the story is being written as we go. But the projector light is just a trick of consciousness. The reel is sitting on the shelf, fully wound, dusty, and complete. You aren't living your life. You are just traveling through a memory that has always been there. This leads us to the most desperate question of all. If the universe is a frozen block of ice, why does it feel like it is moving? Why do I feel like I'm getting older? Why does the coffee get cold? Why does tomorrow feel different than yesterday? If everything is static, where does the illusion of flow come from? Philosophers and physicists have tried to answer this with something called the moving spotlight theory. Imagine that the block universe is a gigantic, pitch-black warehouse filled with statues. The statues are arranged in scenes. You as a baby, you as a child, you as an adult, you on your deathbed. In the darkness, nothing changes. The statues stand there for eternity, frozen in perfect silence. But now, imagine there is a single, narrow beam of light, a spotlight, shining down from the ceiling. This light represents your conscious awareness. As the spotlight moves slowly across the warehouse, it illuminates one group of statues at a time. When the light hits the childhood statues, you experience being a child. You feel the joy, the smallness, the wonder. Then the light moves on. The childhood statues fade back into the darkness, and the light hits the adult statues. Now you feel the stress of your job, the ache in your back. To you, inside the light, it feels like you have changed. It feels like the child became the adult. But in reality, nothing changed. The child statue is still standing there in the dark, exactly where it was. The adult statue was waiting there the whole time. The only thing that moved was the focus of your attention. This theory suggests that life is just the act of illuminating a corridor that was built before you were born. But it begs a terrifying question. Who is moving the spotlight? And why does it only move in one direction? What if the light stopped? Would you be trapped in that single moment forever, unable to die, unable to move, just staring at the same frozen second for eternity? You might be thinking, this is just a metaphor. The warehouse, the film reel, these are just stories physicists tell to explain complicated math. Surely the math itself isn't that scary. Well, let me introduce you to the Wheeler-DeWitt Equation. In the 1960s, physics was facing a crisis. We had two great theories: quantum mechanics, which rules the tiny world of atoms, and general relativity, which rules the massive world of gravity and stars. The problem was that they hated each other. The math didn't fit. Scientists were desperate to find a theory of everything that would combine them into one beautiful equation, a theory of quantum gravity. Two physicists, John Wheeler and Bryce DeWitt, finally managed to combine the equations. They took the Schrödinger equation for quantum states and mixed it with the constraints of Einstein's geometry. They wrote down the formula for the entire universe. They looked at the result, and they panicked. The equation looked like this: h p psi equals 0. It is a beautiful, simple equation, but there was something missing. In almost every other equation in physics, there is a variable t for time. Things change over time. But in the Wheeler-DeWitt equation, the variable t completely cancelled out. It vanished. The math was saying something impossible. The universe as a whole does not change. It has no clock. It has no evolution. It has no before and no after. According to the most advanced attempt to describe the structure of reality, time is equal to 0. It is a variable that simply does not exist at the fundamental level. The universe is a static, zero-energy state that just is. The fact that you see things breaking, falling and dying is a local hallucination, a rounding error in your limited perspective. In the eyes of the equation, nothing has ever happened, and nothing ever will. What does this mean for you, personally? It means we have to confront the most primal fear of the human species: death. We are terrified of death because we view it as an event that happens in the future. We see it as a cliff edge that we are walking towards. We think, I am alive now, but one day I will be dead. The block universe says, no, that is wrong. In a 4-dimensional crystal, your death is not a future event. It is a location. Think about your dead body. It exists, right now. It exists at a specific set of coordinates in space-time, let's say in the year 2080. In that coordinate, your heart has stopped. Your skin is cold. Your brain is decaying. That version of you is just as real, just as physical, and just as permanent as the version of you listening to this video right now. The you that is alive is just a segment of a long, snake-like object that stretches through the block. One end of the snake is a baby. The middle of the snake is an adult. The other end of the snake is a corpse. All parts of the snake exist simultaneously. You are not heading towards death. You are connected to it. It is already part of your anatomy, just separated by a dimension you cannot see. The statue of your corpse is standing in the dark warehouse right now, waiting for the spotlight to slide over it. And because the block is static, that statue will never move. You will be dead at that coordinate forever. The eternity of death isn't something that starts when you die. It is something that is happening right now, parallel to your life. Does knowing that your corpse is waiting for you make you feel precious? Or does it make you feel like a ghost haunting a machine? If we accept that the future is already written in the block, frozen and waiting for us, then we have to perform an autopsy on the most cherished concept in human history: free will. Right now, you feel like you have a choice. You could choose to stop watching this video. You could choose to stand up and walk out of the room. You could choose to have pizza or salad for dinner tonight. You feel a sense of agency, a branching path of possibilities stretching out before you. But in a block universe, branches do not exist. There is only one line. Think about a roller coaster. When you are strapped into the seat and the ride begins, you might feel a rush of adrenaline. You might scream at the sharp turns. You might lean into the curves. You might even close your eyes and pretend you are steering the car. But the track was welded together years ago. The twists, the drops, and the final stop were determined by the engineer long before you bought your ticket. You're experiencing the ride, but you're not controlling it. If the future coordinate in the space-time crystal already contains you eating pizza, then your choice to order pizza was not a decision. It was a discovery. You didn't select option A over option B. Option B never existed. It was a phantom, a mental trick caused by your lack of knowledge. We confuse unknown with undecided. Just because you don't know what you will do tomorrow doesn't mean it isn't already fixed. To a being looking at the whole block, your life looks like a train moving down a single, rusted track. You are a biological robot executing a script that is chemically hardwired into your brain and physically hardwired into the future. Does knowing that you are on rails make you feel safe because you can't mess it up? Or does it make you feel suffocated? This brings us to the end of the fourth level of our spiral, and the conclusion is a vision of total, suffocating stillness. We started this journey looking for aliens and fearing that the universe was a dark forest full of hunters. But the block universe suggests that the universe is something far worse than a forest. It is a museum. Imagine a prehistoric fly trapped in a piece of golden amber. The fly looks like it is flying. Its wings are spread. Its legs are poised to land. It looks dynamic, but it is completely, utterly frozen. It has been stuck in that exact pose for 50 million years, and it will be stuck there for 50 million more. In the eyes of physics, we are that fly. We are trapped in the amber of the fourth dimension. We are not becoming anything. We are not growing. We are not changing. We simply are. Our entire history, from the Big Bang to the final whimper of the cosmos, is a single, solid object, suspended in the void. There is no flow. There is no life, if by life you mean the ability to change the outcome. There is only the eternal, unmoving structure of existence. This is the ultimate prison because it is a prison of perfect order. Nothing is ever lost. Nothing is ever gained. Everything is just locked in its place forever. If this is true, then why do we feel so much pain? Why do we feel the loss of the past if the past is still there? Why do we fear the future if the future is already secure? This forces us to ask, if the block is static, what is creating the illusion of the arrow? What is the force that drags us from the cradle to the grave? If all moments in the block are equally real, and if the laws of physics work forwards and backwards, then why do we have such a glaring asymmetry in our lives? Why can you remember the past, but you cannot remember the future? Why do you know who won the Super Bowl last year, but you have no idea who will win it next year? If time is just a coordinate like north or south, we should be able to see in both directions. The answer is not found in gravity or relativity or quantum mechanics. It is found in the one law that rules them all. The law of the messy room. Physicists call it entropy. Imagine you're standing in a strange desert. You have no compass, you have no GPS, you don't know which way is north or south, but you notice something strange about the ground. In one direction, the sand is arranged in perfect, neat little castles. In the other direction, the sand is just a chaotic, wind-blown pile. You instantly know which way the wind is blowing. It blows from order to disorder. This is the arrow of time. It isn't a fundamental field. It is a statistical gradient. We distinguish the past from the future, not because time flows, but because the universe is getting messier. The past is the direction of order. The future is the direction of garbage. We are not moving through time. We are sliding down a slope of disintegration. And this slide is driven by the most depressing law in all of science. It is a one-way street leading directly off a cliff. To understand why this law is absolute, you don't need a physics degree. You just need a deck of cards. Imagine you buy a brand new deck. It comes in perfect order. Ace, king, queen, jack, all the way down to 2 for all 4 suits. This is a state of low entropy. It is highly organized. Now, throw the cards in the air and let them fall on the floor. Pick them up. Are they still in perfect order? Of course not. They are a mess. They are in a state of high entropy. Now, ask yourself, if you throw them in the air 1,000,000 times, will they ever accidentally land in perfect order again? The answer is technically maybe, but statistically never. The reason is simple math. There's only one way for the cards to be in perfect order, but there are roughly 80 unvigintillion ways for them to be mixed up. That is an 8, followed by 67 zeros. The universe naturally moves toward the state that has the most possibilities, and messy has infinitely more possibilities than clean. This is why your headphones get tangled in your pocket, but they never untangle themselves. This is why a sandcastle blows away, but the wind never builds a castle. The universe is constantly shuffling the deck. The reason you feel time moving forward is simply that you are watching the order dissolve into chaos. You're watching the deck get shuffled. The future feels different from the past because the future is messier. That is the only difference. Time is not a magical energy. It is just the measurement of how much damage has been done to the system. This statistical law leads us to the concept of irreversibility, which is the scientific name for heartbreak. We instinctively understand that some things can be undone. If you walk west, you can turn around and walk east. If you play a video, you can rewind it. But entropy introduces events that are permanent. Think about cracking an egg into a frying pan. You shatter the shell, the yolk spills out, and the whites start to cook. It turns into an omelette. Now, try to reverse it. Try to turn the omelette back into a raw egg inside a pristine shell. You can't. Not because of a lack of technology, but because the information that described the original egg has been scrambled and lost to the heat of the room. This is the horror of the second law applied to biology. You are the egg. Aging is not a clock ticking inside you. Aging is simply the accumulation of entropy. Every day, UV rays damage your DNA. Every day, your cells make copying errors. Every day, proteins in your brain misfold. You are slowly scrambling. We spend our entire lives fighting this. We eat food, we drink water, we sleep, all to repair the damage. But the second law guarantees that the repair process itself creates more waste than it fixes. You cannot win. You cannot unscramble yourself. The feeling of time passing is just the sensation of your body slowly losing the battle against probability. We are structures of order floating in a universe that wants to tear us apart and scatter our atoms evenly across the void. And eventually the universe will get what it wants. But this leads to a massive cosmological mystery. If the universe always moves from order to disorder, from a pristine deck of cards to a shuffled mess, then it implies that in the very beginning, the deck must have been perfectly sorted. If you walk into a room and see a wind-up toy soldier marching across the floor, you know that a few minutes ago, someone must have been there to wind it up. The toy cannot wind itself. The energy had to come from a source of lower entropy. This logic forces physicists to look back at the Big Bang and ask, who wound up the universe? This is known as the past hypothesis. It states that for our universe to exist as it does today, With stars and galaxies and life, the Big Bang must have started in a state of impossibly low entropy. It must have been smoother, hotter, and more organized than anything we can imagine. The mathematician Roger Penrose calculated the odds of a universe starting this way by pure chance. The number is 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 123. That number is so big that if you tried to write it out by putting a 0 on every single atom in the observable universe, you would run out of atoms long before you finished writing the number. This implies that we are living in a statistical miracle. We are sliding down a slope of order that was built by a freak accident 13.8 billion years ago. We are running on a battery that was fully charged at the dawn of time, and every second that ticks by is just the needle moving closer to empty. We are not generating new time, we are spending a limited inheritance. And once the battery is dead, the clock stops forever. Now, you might argue, wait a minute. Entropy says things get messier, but look at us. Look at cities, look at computers, look at the human brain. We are incredibly organized. Life creates order. Therefore, we must be defeating entropy. This is a beautiful hope, but it is a thermodynamic lie. Life does not defeat entropy. Life accelerates it. You are what physicists call a dissipative structure. Yes, you maintain a high level of order inside your body. You build bones and complex neural networks. But to do that, you have to consume low entropy energy, like food and sunlight, and excrete high entropy waste, like heat and sewage. The cost of keeping your body organized is that you have to create a massive amount of disorder in your environment. Think of a fire. A flame has a structure, it has a shape, it looks organized. But the fire is actively destroying the wood, turning complex cellulose into ash and chaotic smoke. You are the fire. You are burning the resources of the planet to keep your shape. In fact, some theories suggest that the very reason life evolved is to help the universe destroy itself faster. A planet without life is slow at releasing energy. A planet with life burns its resources efficiently. We dig up oil and burn it. We split atoms. We turn forests into heat. We are the universe's most efficient way of increasing entropy. We are not the heroes fighting the chaos. We are the agents of the chaos, engineered to speed up the slide toward the end. We think we are building a civilization, but from the perspective of thermodynamics, we are just a very complicated way of turning sunlight into waste heat. If we follow the logic of entropy and probability to its ultimate nightmare conclusion, we hit a concept that makes the Matrix look like a documentary. It is called the Boltzmann Brain paradox. We establish that a low entropy universe like ours, filled with billions of galaxies and consistent laws of physics, is incredibly unlikely. It is the 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 123 chance. It is statistically absurd that we are here. But do you know what is much, much easier to create by random chance? A single brain. Ludwig Boltzmann, the father of thermodynamics, realized that in a chaotic universe that lasts forever, random particles will eventually bump into each other. Usually they just drift apart. But given infinite time, they might accidentally form a hydrogen atom, then a dust mote. And eventually, purely by accident, they might come together to form a fully functioning human brain, complete with false memories of a past that never happened. This brain would exist for a split second, hallucinate a life, think, I am watching a YouTube video about time, and then dissolve back into the chaos. Here is the horror. The math says that creating one Boltzmann brain is exponentially more likely than creating an entire Big Bang universe. It is billions of times easier to hallucinate reality than to actually build it. Therefore, if you believe in probability, you have to admit that it is overwhelmingly likely that you are not a real person sitting on a real Earth. You are a momentary fluctuation in the void, dreaming of a life that isn't real, and in the next second, you will cease to exist. Can you prove you aren't? No. Because any memory you use to prove it could have been planted by the fluctuation a microsecond ago. Let's assume you are real. Let's assume the universe is real. Where does the slide lead? Where does the arrow point? It points to the heat death. As entropy increases, energy spreads out. Stars burn their fuel and die. Black holes evaporate. Eventually, all the gradients in the universe will flatten out. The temperature will be exactly the same everywhere, just a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. When the universe reaches this state of maximum entropy, nothing can happen anymore. To have an event, to have a thought, a movement, a heartbeat, you need energy to flow from a hot spot to a cold spot. But if everything is the same temperature, there is no flow. There is no change. This is the end of time. Time is a measure of change, so when change stops, time stops. The universe won't disappear with a bang. It will just fade into an eternal, frozen silence. It will become a vast graveyard of cold photons where nothing will ever happen again. Forever. This is not a theory. This is the inevitable prediction of the second law. Every time you breathe, every time you beat your heart, you are pushing the universe a tiny step closer to this eternal stasis. We are running toward a finish line where the prize is absolute nothingness. So here we are at the bottom of the fifth level. We have learned that time is not a creator, it is a destroyer. The flow you feel is just the sensation of falling apart. Your body is a heat engine designed to burn the future. Your history is a statistical accident that shouldn't exist. And your destiny is to become cold dust in a timeless void. Entropy tells us that the universe is not building something. It is dismantling itself. It is a slow-motion explosion that has been going on for 14 billion years, and we are just the debris flying through the air, mistaking our trajectory for purpose. This feels like the ultimate defeat. Biology tricks us. Physics traps us. Entropy erases us. Is there any way out? Is there any loop in the code? Well, there is one last theory. A theory that suggests that even the heat death is not the end. A theory that says the nightmare is not that time stops, but that it never, ever stops. Let's talk about infinity and the horror of the eternal return. We have spent the last hour terrified of the end, haven't we? We look at the concept of the heat death, the ultimate freezing of the universe, and we shudder because it sounds like the final lights out. We imagine a dark, silent void where consciousness is extinguished forever, and that triggers a very primal, biological panic in our brains. Humans have a natural fear of non-existence. We are hardwired to survive. So the idea of simply stopping feels like the worst possible outcome. But if you look at the cold, hard logic of mathematics, it suggests that there is something infinitely worse than the dark. What if the lights never go out? What if time is truly infinite? We tend to think of infinity as a majestic, open frontier, a place of endless possibility where anything can happen. We romanticize forever. But if you look at the strict logic of a finite universe existing inside an infinite timeline, infinity stops looking like a wide open field and starts looking remarkably like a solitary confinement cell. Think about the concept of a locked room. If you are locked in a room for an hour with nothing to do, you get bored. If you are locked in for a year, you start to lose your mind. If you are locked in for 1 billion years, you might, if you are immortal, eventually find a way to accept it or go catatonic. But what if you are locked in forever? Not 1 billion years, not 1 trillion, but forever. The problem is that our universe appears to be a box with a limited inventory. We have a specific number of particles, protons, neutrons, electrons. We have a specific set of laws that govern how they interact. And we have a finite amount of space in the observable universe. If the universe does not end, if the quantum vacuum keeps vibrating even after the stars die, or if the Big Bang cycles around into a big crunch and starts over, then we are facing the problem of the box. We are trapped in a container that has no exit, but the clock on the wall never, ever stops ticking. This leads to a conclusion that makes the heat death look like an absolute mercy. It implies that silence is not the final state. It brings us to a mathematical theorem that proves that you might not be allowed to die. You might be forced to exist, in one form or another, for a duration that the human mind physically cannot comprehend. To understand why you might be trapped, we have to travel back to the year 1890 and look at the work of the French mathematician Henri Poincaré. He proved a theorem that haunts the field of statistical mechanics to this day. It is called the Poincaré Recurrence theorem, and the logic behind it is so brutally simple that it is almost impossible to argue with. The theorem states that if you have a system with a finite amount of space and a finite amount of energy, that system has a limited number of possible states it can be in. It can change for a long time, shuffling its particles into new configurations, creating new stars, new planets, and new people. But if you wait long enough, the system must eventually return to a state that is arbitrarily close to its initial state. Let's try to explain this with something you can hold in your hand. A standard deck of cards. If you take a deck of 52 cards and shuffle it, there is a massive number of possible combinations. Unbelievably massive. It is an 8 followed by 67 zeros. If you shuffle the deck once every second, it would take you longer than the age of the universe to see every combination. But, and this is the crucial point, the number of combinations is not infinite. It is just very, very big. If you keep shuffling the deck over and over again for a trillion years, eventually, by pure mathematical necessity, you will run out of new arrangements. You will be forced to repeat a sequence. You will shuffle the exact same order of cards that you held in your hand yesterday. You cannot avoid it. Once you exhaust the possibilities, the cycle has to restart. Now, I want you to look at the universe around you. It is just a very, very big deck of cards. The cards are atoms, photons, and fields. The deck is the observable volume of space that we live in. The number of atoms is huge, roughly 10 to the power of 80, but it is finite. The amount of energy available to push those atoms around is finite. Therefore, the number of possible ways to arrange the universe is finite. But time might be infinite. And if you have an infinite amount of time to shuffle a finite number of atoms, eventually, the shuffle will repeat. Poincaré proved that the universe is destined to reset itself. It might take an unfathomable amount of time, a number of years so big it would make your head explode if you tried to write it down. But eventually the atoms that make up you will come together again. The universe will inadvertently reconstruct the Milky Way, the Earth, and the room you are sitting in right now. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, sure, the atoms come back together, but that won't be me. That will just be a clone, a copy made of different stuff. I will be dead and gone. This is where the horror of materialism kicks in to shatter your comfort. According to modern physics and biology, there is no ghost in the machine. You are not a magical spirit inhabiting a body. You are the arrangement of atoms. Your memories, your personality, your love for your mother, your fear of spiders, the specific way you taste coffee, all of it is physically encoded in the specific neural pattern of your brain. If you replicate the pattern, you replicate the person. To visualize this, think of the famous infinite monkey theorem. You have probably heard it before. If you give a monkey a typewriter and an infinite amount of time, eventually just by hitting random keys, he will accidentally type the complete works of William Shakespeare. He will type Hamlet perfectly, down to the last comma, just by chance. In this cosmic metaphor, the universe is the monkey, and the atoms are the keys on the typewriter. The universe is blindly shuffling particles in the dark vacuum of eternity. For eons, it types gibberish, dead rocks, gas clouds, empty space, static noise. It creates trillions of failed solar systems and dead worlds. But given eternity, eventually it will hit the combination that spells you. It will accidentally reassemble the star system of Sol. It will reassemble the Earth, molecule by molecule. It will reassemble the coffee shop you are sitting in. And most terrifyingly, it will reassemble your brain, with every single neuron in the exact same electrical state it is in right now. You will open your eyes, you will draw a breath, and you will continue this thought. completely unaware that a trillion years of darkness have passed since you last thought it. You are not a unique event in the history of the cosmos. You are a recurring typo in an infinite manuscript. The universe creates you, destroys you, and then, because it has nothing else to do with its infinite time, it builds you again. And again, and again. Does that sound like a miracle to you? Or does it sound like a glitch? This brings us to the most terrifying psychological concept ever proposed by a philosopher. Friedrich Nietzsche's eternal recurrence. Nietzsche didn't know about quantum mechanics or the Poincaré recurrence theorem. He was writing in the 19th century, long before we knew about atoms and probabilities, but he guessed the horror using pure intuition. He asked a simple question that was designed to break the human spirit. What if you have to live this life again? And I don't mean a new life. I don't mean a reincarnation where you come back as a prince or a bird or a better version of yourself who learned from your mistakes. I mean this life. This exact life, down to the smallest, most painful detail. Imagine a demon creeps into your bedroom tonight, sits on your chest, and whispers, "This life, as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more, and there will be nothing new in it, but every pain and every joy and every thought and sigh, and everything unutterably small or great in your life must return to you, all in the same succession and sequence." Think about the weight of that statement. Every mistake you made, you will make again. Every time you had your heart broken, it will break again, with the exact same sharpness. The boredom of waiting in traffic, the physical pain of a stubbed toe, the humiliation of a failure, the crushing grief of losing a loved one. You are condemned to repeat it forever. You are trapped on a roller coaster that never stops and never changes its track. In the block universe, we were frozen statues, unable to move. In the recurrence, we are broken records. We are skipping over the same groove in the vinyl for eternity. This transforms the universe from a story into a torture chamber. If you knew for a fact that you had to watch this exact video a trillion more times, perfectly unable to look away or change your reaction, would you scream? Or would you laugh? Nietzsche called this the heaviest burden. It turns your life from a fleeting gift into an eternal sentence. The only thing worse than knowing you are trapped in a loop is not knowing you are trapped in a loop. And physics guarantees that you won't know. This is the Groundhog Day scenario, but without the Hollywood hope of escape. In the movie Groundhog Day, the main character remembers the previous cycles. He wakes up every morning remembering what happened yesterday. Because of this memory, he can learn. He can adapt. He can change his behavior. He becomes a better person because he accumulates information across the loops. He eventually breaks the cycle through growth. But in the physical universe, entropy destroys information. When the universe resets, or when your atoms fall apart and are eventually reassembled by the cosmic shuffle, your memory is reset to absolute zero. The you that wakes up in the next cycle will not remember the trillion years of death, nor will you remember the millions of times you have lived this life before. This is the ultimate tragedy of the system. Because you don't remember, you cannot learn. Because you cannot learn, you cannot change. You will make the exact same bad decisions. You will say the exact same hurtful words to your partner in the heat of an argument. You will waste your time worrying about the exact same nonsense that doesn't matter. You are not just repeating your life, you're repeating your ignorance. You're doomed to walk into the same open manhole cover, fall, break your leg, heal, die, and then wake up and walk into the manhole again. Forever. This is the deepest level of the spiral we have descended into. We aren't just prisoners of space, relativity, or prisoners of probability, entropy. We are prisoners of logic itself. If time is infinite and we are finite structures, then we are nothing more than a looping GIF in the cosmic group chat. A joke that the universe tells to itself over and over without ever getting to the punchline. Is there any way to break the loop? Or is the only freedom found in how we choose to look at the cage? If the idea of repeating your exact life forever sounds exhausting, mathematics has one final twist that turns exhaustion into pure nightmare fuel. We have assumed that the recurrence will be a perfect copy of your current life. But statistical mechanics suggests that for every perfect copy of you that the universe accidentally assembles, it will assemble trillions of almost copies that are significantly worse. Think of it as a cosmic casino where the house always wins. In a chaotic universe that is randomly shuffling atoms, order is rare and disorder is common. Health is a state of high order. Your bones are intact, your heart is pumping, your chemistry is balanced. Sickness and pain are states of disorder. There are only a few ways to be healthy, but there are millions of ways to be broken. Therefore, purely by the laws of probability, the universe is far more likely to reassemble a version of you that is in pain than a version of you that is happy. Imagine the universe is trying to type your life story again. It is much easier for the cosmic monkey to type a version of the script where you trip and break your leg than a version where you win the lottery. It is much easier to assemble a brain that is suffering from anxiety than a brain that is flooded with dopamine. In the infinite shuffle of eternity, you will be resurrected in every possible variation of your existence, but the vast majority of those variations will be tragic. You will live the life where you made the wrong choice. You will live the life where the car didn't stop in time. You will live the life where you said the thing you can never take back. You are not just trapped in a loop, you are trapped in a lottery where 99% of the tickets are torture. The silence of the universe might be because the other versions of us are screaming, and we are just the lucky few who happen to be in a quiet lull of the storm. Does that make you feel lucky to be you? Right here? Right now? Or does it make you terrified of the next shuffle? We have now reached the absolute bottom of the spiral. We have peeled back every layer of reality, and we have found a trap at every single level. Let's look at the full picture of the cage we have built tonight. Biologically, we found that we are trapped in the past, lagging 80 milliseconds behind reality, hallucinating a sense of control that we do not possess. Physically, we are imprisoned by the speed of light, isolated in our own private time bubbles, unable to ever truly touch the now of another human being. Thermodynamically, we are being dragged toward a heat death, where our bodies and our achievements will dissolve into cold dust. And logically, we are stuck in an infinite loop of eternal return, doomed to repeat our mistakes forever, without memory or hope of escape. It seems that the universe is a closed circle. It is the ancient symbol of the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. No matter where we turn, outward to the stars, inward to our atoms, or forward to the future, we hit a wall. The universe appears to be a hostile, chaotic, high-entropy machine that is actively hostile to the existence of complex, organized structure like you. Our existence is not a feature of the system. It looks like a bug. We are an anomaly that has managed to survive in the cracks of the machine for a few brief moments, before the gears grind us down again. This realization brings us to a psychological breaking point known as cosmic horror. It is the sinking feeling that you get when you realize that the human scale is irrelevant to the cosmic scale. We want the universe to be a home. We want it to be a mother. But the data suggests it is an indifferent ocean, and we are treading water in the middle of a hurricane that does not even know we are there. So, what is the point? If the loop is eternal and the suffering is probable, why not just give up? Why get out of bed tomorrow? This is exactly the moment where we must pivot. If we stop here, we are left with nothing but despair. We are left with a nihilism so heavy it could crush your soul. But philosophy begins where physics ends. The terrifying nature of these theories actually offers us a strange, paradoxical kind of freedom. If the universe is a trap, then understanding the mechanism of the trap is the first step toward figuring out how to live inside it without losing our minds. We need to deconstruct the horror and find the hidden utility within the fear. Ask yourself, if the universe has no plan for you, if there is no grand destiny written in the stars, And if we are just accidental arrangements of atoms destined to die, does that make you feel heavy? Or does it make you feel light? Think about the pressure we put on ourselves. We worry about messing up our lives. We worry about not fulfilling our purpose. We worry about what the universe wants from us. But the science we discussed tonight tells us that the universe wants nothing. It doesn't care if you become a billionaire or a beggar. It doesn't care if you write a masterpiece or stare at a wall. The universe is busy shuffling cards. This means you are off the hook. If the script is random, you can stop worrying about getting it right. There is no right. There is only is. This realization is the breaking of the chains. We are not soldiers in a cosmic army who have to win a war against entropy. We are tourists. We are here to look around, touch the walls, drink the coffee, and experience the impossible unlikelihood of being conscious in a dead cosmos. The horror of the trap forces us to stop looking for meaning out there and start creating it in here. This philosophy is often called optimistic nihilism. It is the idea that the lack of inherent meaning in the universe is not a defect. It is a blank canvas. Think about the alternative. Imagine if the universe did have a clear objective purpose. Imagine if you were created by a specific god or a specific alien overlord to fulfill a specific function. For example, to mine gold, or to worship a deity, or to be a battery. You would be a tool. You would have a job description written into your atoms. You could fail. You could be a bad human. You would be a slave to a cosmic destiny you did not choose. But in a universe that is a chaotic accident, in a universe that is drifting toward heat death without a plan, you are free. You are not a cog in a machine. You are the machine waking up and realizing it can do whatever it wants. The fact that the universe does not care about you means that you do not have to seek its approval. The fact that your life is temporary makes it infinitely precious. Scarcity creates value. This is a basic law of economics. If gold were as common as dirt, it would be worthless. If you lived forever, every moment would be worthless because there would always be another one. But because you have a finite number of heartbeats, because the entropy is slowly eating your battery, every single cup of coffee, every conversation with a friend, every sunset you watch is a limited edition event. It will never be repeated in the history of time. The heat death is billions of years away, but right here, right now, you have a window of light. You get to decide what is important. If you decide that walking your dog is the most important thing in the universe, then it is the most important thing. And the universe has no authority to tell you otherwise because the universe is just a collection of gas and rocks. To operationalize this philosophy, I want you to think about the band on the Titanic. We all know the story. The ship hit the iceberg. The water was rising. The chaos was spreading. The musicians knew with mathematical certainty that the ship was going down. They knew there were not enough lifeboats. They knew they were going to die in the freezing Atlantic. So, what did they do? Did they scream? Did they jump into the water? Did they curl up in a ball and wait for the end? No. They grabbed their violins and they played. Why? Why play music for a dying audience on a sinking ship? It served no practical purpose. It didn't patch the hole. It didn't warm the water. It didn't save a single life. According to the laws of survival, it was a waste of energy. But that act of playing is the perfect metaphor for the human condition. We are all on the Titanic. The iceberg of entropy is inevitable. The water is rising every day as our cells age. We know the ship is going down, but we play the music anyway. We play it because the act of playing in the face of certain death is an act of ultimate defiance. It is a way of saying to the universe, you can crush my body. You can erase my memory. You can freeze the stars. But in this moment, right now, I am creating beauty. I am creating structure. I am creating meaning where there was none. Every time you laugh, every time you create art, every time you help a stranger, every time you love someone knowing that you will eventually lose them, you are playing the violin. You are rebelling against the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy wants you to be cold, disorganized, and dead. By being warm, organized, and alive, you are spitting in the face of the universe, and that rebellious music is the only thing that matters. We have reached the end of the line. We have spent the last few hours dissecting reality, pulling apart the gears of the clock to see what makes them turn. And at first glance, the parts look terrifying. Biology lied to us about the lag. Relativity locked us in solitary confinement. Quantum mechanics erased our history. Entropy promised to destroy our future. And the block universe turned us into frozen statues. It feels like we have been diagnosing a terminal illness. It feels like we found out that the universe is a trap designed to crush us. But now, I want you to step back and look at the whole machine at once. Don't look at the parts in isolation. Look at how they fit together. If you squint, the trap starts to look like something else entirely. It starts to look like a fortress. Think about it. Why do we have that biological lag? To protect our sanity. If we saw the raw, chaotic data of the universe in real time, our brains would crash. The delay is a buffer. It is a shock absorber that allows us to navigate a world that moves too fast for us. Why do we have the speed of light limit? To protect causality. If information could travel instantly, the universe would be a mess of paradoxes where effects happen before causes. The walls of our light cones keep our stories coherent. Why do we have the block universe? To preserve us. Without the block, the past would truly vanish. With the block, our lives are saved forever in the crystal. And why do we have entropy? To give us value. Without death, life would be cheap. The fact that we are temporary is the only reason we matter. When you synthesize all these horrors, you realize that the universe isn't trying to kill you. It is trying to define you. It is carving out a tiny, protected space where complex life can exist for a brief, beautiful moment. We are living in the eye of the storm. The chaos is raging outside, the quantum foam, the heat death, the vacuum decay. But right here, in this specific mix of biology and physics, it is quiet enough to think. It is quiet enough to feel. The trap is actually a spacesuit, and it is the only thing keeping the void out. So what do you do with this information? Now that you know the walls are there, how do you live inside them? The most dangerous trap of the block universe is the feeling of passivity. You might think, if the future is written, I'll just sit on the couch and wait for it to happen. But that is a misunderstanding of how the block works. The block contains your actions, but it does not replace them. You are not a puppet being pulled by strings, you are the string itself. This leads to a radical shift in how you should view time. Stop waiting for the right time. In a static universe, there is no such thing as later. Later is just a coordinate you haven't visited yet. The only coordinate where you have any power, the only place where the needle of consciousness is touching the vinyl, is right now. This moment, this exact split second where you're hearing my voice, is the only reality you will ever possess. If you want to change your life, you cannot do it tomorrow. Tomorrow is a ghost. You cannot do it yesterday. Yesterday is a stone. You can only do it in the now. This urgency should act like a trigger. Every time you hesitate, every time you say, I'll do it next year, you are fighting against the physics of your own existence. You are betting on a future that, from your perspective, might never arrive. Do not live your life like a rough draft. There are no rewrites in the block universe. There are no do-overs. You are writing the final copy in permanent ink every single second. So write something worth reading. Scream your love. Do the work. Take the risk. Because the statue is setting in the concrete as we speak. And you don't want to be frozen in a pose of hesitation forever. I have to give you one final warning before we close the book. What we have done tonight is dangerous. In the world of information security, there is a concept called an info hazard. An info hazard is a piece of information that can harm you simply because you know it. It's like a virus that infects your software. By watching this video, by following the spiral all the way to the bottom, you have uploaded the logic of the trap into your mind. You have swallowed the red pill. You can never go back to being naive. You can never go back to thinking that time is just a river, or that death is just a sleep. When you look in the mirror tomorrow morning, you won't just see a face. You will see a biological machine lagging 80 milliseconds behind reality. When you look at the stars, you won't see twinkling lights. You will see a graveyard of dead empires separated by the prison walls of relativity. When you make a choice, you will wonder if it was really you, or just the script playing out. This knowledge carries a weight. It can lead to a sense of vertigo, a feeling that nothing is real. This is called ontological shock, but I want you to carry this shock as a weapon, not a wound. Most people walk through life asleep. They are sleepwalking toward the grave, distracted by petty nonsense, unaware of the miracle of their own existence. You are now awake. You see the machinery. You see the wires. That makes you powerful. You are no longer a victim of the illusion. You are a participant in the truth. You know the stakes. The universe is playing a game of poker with you, and for the first time in your life, you know what cards you're holding. So play them. Let's zoom out one last time. Way out. Past the Earth, past the galaxy, past the edge of the visible universe. Let's look at the whole of existence from the perspective of the pure, cold math. The universe should be dead. Statistically, the most probable state of the universe is high entropy, a chaotic soup of radiation with no structure, no life, and no thought. The fact that we are here, that atoms came together to form stars, and stars cooked carbon, and carbon formed cells, and cells built brains that can understand the concept of time, is a statistical impossibility. We are a glitch. We are a rounding error in the second law of thermodynamics. We are a momentary fluctuation that shouldn't exist. But that is exactly what makes us beautiful. In a universe of dead rocks and gas, we are the only thing that feels. We are the universe's way of crying, laughing, and screaming into the void. We are the anomaly. We tend to feel small when we look at the cosmos. We think, I am nothing compared to a galaxy. But a galaxy cannot love. A galaxy cannot write a song. A galaxy doesn't know it exists. One single human thought is more complex and more precious than a billion burning stars. We are not small. We are concentrated. We are the distilled essence of meaning in a vast desert of nothingness. So, do not apologize for your existence. Do not feel crushed by the silence. You are the noise. You are the rebellion. You are the glitch that refuses to be fixed. Every breath you take is a victory against the dark. Every moment you stay conscious is a middle finger to the heat death. You are the lighthouse keeper, and the flame is your mind. Keep it lit. We have reached the end of the spiral. The clock is winding down. The video is about to end. And you are about to step back into your normal life. You will stand up. You will check your phone. You will get a glass of water. But before you do, I want you to pause for just 1 second. Look around the room you are in. Look at the light hitting the wall. Listen to the hum of the silence. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. This moment, this specific configuration of atoms, this specific slice of the block universe, will never happen again. In the infinite shuffling of the cosmic deck, this combination is gone the moment you blink. It is a limited edition of one. The trap of time is real. The biology is lagging, the physics is rigid, and the entropy is rising. We cannot escape the cage, but we can decorate the walls. We can fill the silence with our own music. We can turn the prison into a palace of experience. So, go out there, live your life, push the rock up the hill and smile while you do it. Build your monument in the crystal. Love your fate, but do me one favor. Don't blink. Because in a universe this unstable, the moment you close your eyes might be the moment the simulation decides to save memory. And you don't want to miss the show? Good luck. And thank you for watching.